morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm meadsyreplays. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to have a look at what I think is the top 5 USA tanks. Yes, the top 5 American tanks in Blitz. And again, just like I did with the British tanks, this is all my opinion. You guys might think differently, and that is absolutely fine to have your own opinion. So the first tank on this list, I think, is the Hellcat. The Hellcat for the tier 6, it is just an amazing tank. It is one of the best tier 6 tanks in the game. The gun, the DPM, is the speed, they are all absolutely fantastic. Of course, the only thing that isn't great about the tank is, of course, the armor profile. But you know, it's even without the armor, it is an amazing tank. Honestly, it's a fun tank to play as well. If you want to go and play tier 6, the Hellcat is a fun tank to play. Of course, there is a new tank on the block, well, newish tank on the block, and that is the Super Hellcat, the tier 7 version. Although that is just as good as the Hellcat, it's not quite as good. The Hellcat in tier 6 is just absolutely fantastic. And if you haven't played it, and if you haven't got it, definitely you need to go and play or grind the Hellcat. Moving on to the next tank on this list. The next tank on the list is the E3. Now, I'm literally just about to do a video on the E3, so we're not going to talk about it too much. But yeah, the E3 is currently not just one of the best American tanks, but it is actually one of the best tanks in the game. It is a fun tank to play. The armor profile, it is just amazing. The gun is very, very good with the... It's got the higher alpha now, 680 alpha instead of 640, which in my opinion does make all the difference, especially when you are shooting HE like that. And of course the high rolls and the average rolls are normally above the 600 mark. But yeah, the E3 is definitely a must-have tank destroyer. Of course, it is a tank destroyer, don't forget that, but you've got to kind of not play it like a tank destroyer. You've got to kind of play it like just like a heavy, like a super heavy tank. But yet this tank had to be in on my list because it's one of my go-to tanks. You know, it's a brilliant tank, and I absolutely love the E3. It is amazing. Moving on to the next tank on the list. The next tank, of course, is the Shark. The Shark, I recently did a video with the Shark, so again, we're not going to talk about the Shark too much, but it had to be on the list. Honestly, it is one of the best tier 8s in the game, not just USA tanks, but it's one of the best tier 8 premium tanks in the game, and if it comes for sale for quite cheap, or cheapish, then it definitely is worth thinking about buying the Shark. It's a fun tank to play. You could play it in all different kind of modes. Of course, you can play it in ratings. It does really well in ratings. It does really well in tier 8 tournaments, and of course it does really well in supremacy, because supremacy is quite a quick tank as well. It's not a slow heavy. The DPM is okay for a heavy. So yeah, it's an all-round fantastic tank, and definitely a tank that you guys should consider getting, of course, if you do have the money to do so. But yet again, not just one of the best American tanks, but one of the best premium tanks in the entire game. Moving on to the next tank on the list. Now, this tank, I was humming and hawing, like, do I add this tank or do I add the T32? But because I think, like, the T32, again, I recently done a video on the T32 about how underrated the tank is. But to be honest, I had to go for the T29, the tier 7 tech tree American USA tank. And again, it's one of the best tier 7s. And I had to go for this mainly because of the armor profile. You know, it can hold its own against tier 8s. Like this game here, I mean, this is a ratings game, and I still do very, very well. The turret on this thing is absolutely amazing. If you can go hold down, of course, do go hold down, because it has a very, very strong turret. Of course, there are some weak points in the tank. There has to be a weak point in the tank. But yeah, I went with the the T29 over the T32 because I just think tier for tier, the T29 is absolutely fantastic, and I definitely think this is a worthy mention in in the best the best top 5 American tanks in the game. And I used to hate this tank. Like back in the day, I really used to hate this tank. But of course, the upper plate is quite well, not the upper plate, but the front plate against the tier 8s is kind of weak. But if you go hold down, and if you're up against some tier 6s and tier 7s, you'll bounce just about anything that comes your way, as long as you're in the right position. So yeah, definitely one of those tanks that is a must grind. You have to grind this tank. I think the whole line is actually a really good grind, and one of the best grinding lines in the game. So the T29, definitely a must-have, and considering it's a tech tree tank, anybody could get your hands on this tank. But yeah, definitely worth grinding, and definitely one of the best one of the best American tanks in the game. Moving on to the last and final tank in this list. So the last tank in the list, I went for the Sheridan. Now again, this was a very difficult choice because I thought, you know, I haven't even added a tier 10 in this list in a minute, and there are quite a few tier 10s that I could add in this list. You know, originally I went for the Yo. I went for the M6 Yo because I think it's a brilliant tank, and even the tier 9 Yo, the tier 8 Yo, they are all fantastic tanks that could be added in this list, to be honest, especially the tier 10 Yo. That could be added in this list quite easily. But considering I'm doing a top 5, I'm not doing a top 10. If I was doing a top 10, those Yos definitely would be in this list. But you know what? I had to go for the Sheridan. You know, it's a light tank. It's a brilliant light tank, and it's a fun light tank. With the alpha that it's got, the ability you have where you could just do 500, 600 damage, run away as quickly as you can. And of course, not just that, but also the troll armor profile, as you've just seen there with the troll bounce. This is one of the most frustrating tanks in the game when it comes to armor profiles. Like, it's got no armor, but yet you still manage to get all these troll bounces, and it is so frustrating when you're in a tier 10, even like a Jaegeru or a Death Star or anything like that. You shoot the side of this thing and then it just bounces, and you're just like, how? I get that it's got spaced armor everywhere, but that still shouldn't stop AP or APCR. And again, that's another thing about the tank. Even though it's got no armor effectively, it does have all that spaced armor. So if someone's trying to look at you with HE like a Death Star, and they shoot the side of you, or even the rear or the front, then they're not going to do the maximum amount of damage. Of course, the bottom plate I think at the front and at the back, yeah, they can. And of course, the turret, they can. But if you're moving and doing 65 kilometers an hour, that is not an easy target. And that is why I just had to add this into the list, you know, because how you're able just to do this, like take a shot over 500 damage and run away as quickly as you can, and very quickly at that. And yeah, I just had to add it in the list because it is a fun tank, and it is a good tank. It definitely was a worthy mention in this top 5. So basically that is it. Let me know what tanks you would take out, what tanks don't you agree with, and what tanks do you agree with. Let me know in the comments below, what tanks would you add to this top 5 list. And don't forget, this is my top 5 list and my opinion. You guys might literally hate all the 5 tanks that I added, but you know, that is absolutely fine. Let me know in the comments below. But for now, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'm meadsy69, and I will catch you all very soon. Bye bye.